This is Agent Provocateur with Allan Walsh and Adam Wylde.
Welcome to another episode of Agent Provocateur. I am here in Toronto with the infamous, notorious, wonderful person, Adam Wylde. Adam, how are you?
I thought you might make a comment about my mustache, and I would understand. I really would. was it a shock?
You know, I noticed it when I walked in and saw you.
Yeah.
But and it didn't register with me Movember. But
yes.
Here we are.
Yes. Yeah. My wife hates it, and I have to shave it as soon as December 1st comes. But I'm holding on to it for now, and we're raising money, so it's for a good cause. It's a little bit
past the peach fuzz phase.
Yeah. Although people are chirping me, Allan, like they're saying like it's November as of this recording, November 21st, and that's the best you can do. And I'm like, I'm not great with the facial hair. Yeah. Some guys can, some guys cannot. So you're in town. It's great to see you. It was like, you know, it's always a great reunion when you're in town. And so I wanted to get right to sort of where we are. And Elliot Friedman always has American Thanksgiving as a benchmark for a lot of NHL teams in terms of where they're at in the playoff picture, right? We're at that point, you know, we're a week away from that right now. You know, we're looking at a lot of teams in this part of the year that are not performing to where they thought they would. And I think this year specifically, we've seen a significant change with a few teams. The NHL every once in a while flips and new teams emerge and other teams fall. And I'm looking at, you know, the Anaheim Ducks who have jumped into first in their division. The Chicago Blackhawks look like they're a force to be reckoned with again. Yep. You know, teams like the Toronto Maple Leafs who have fallen off significantly. The New York Rangers are not where they want to be. Florida, yeah, with all the injuries. So I was curious. I'm going to call it sweating season for the GMs because they're not out of it. I mean, Craig Berube was on a last place Blues team that went all the way to the Stanley Cup and won it from January on.
The LA Kings' first cup. The Kings barely made it into the playoffs. They finished 8th in the conference and went all the way.
That's right. And I remember that run really well. I'm wondering for you, GMs probably are starting to get nervous, probably starting to get a little bit antsy. How does that affect your world? Are you getting a few more calls these days? Is that usual for you? What's late November, early December like?
So on any typical day, I probably speak with, I would say, an average of about 7 or 8 NHL GMs. Okay. If there's something going on, maybe the activity picks up a little. Mm-hmm. But on an average day around this time of year, I'm talking to 7 or 8 guys. And when every GM has their own personality and approach to speaking with different agents. And of course, you know, we've had GMs on the show, and whether it's Brad Treliving or Doug Armstrong, Steve Yzerman, everybody sort of has their own, you have your own interaction with each person individually. Mm-hmm. What I find is when things are not going well, certain GMs get a lot grumpier on the phone.
Okay.
All right. It's not get on the phone and shoot the shit and talk about this or that. There's an edge. You can tell some people are under pressure.
Okay.
You know, think of the Queen David Bowie song.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, playing in the background, right? They're under pressure. And I get the feeling when sometimes I get off the phone, I'm like, wow, this guy's really wound up today. Mm-hmm. And it's not usually from a game. It's usually from, you know, where a team is sitting after the quarter pole of the season. Mm-hmm. And there's certain teams right now that obviously the plan going into the season is under great stress, either through injuries, coaching, lack of performance from certain guys, and it makes everybody tighter. And I think it extends beyond just the GM, but my main contact point with most teams is the general manager of the team.
Right.
Right. So you get that sense. So you know, sweating season is a good term. Okay. I like to refer to it as grumpy season.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Sun's going down at 4:30 as well, too. That doesn't help.
Yeah. And I think that there's little things that might happen along the way that when things are going much better, doesn't really impact the day to day. And those little things, maybe a little annoyance, all of a sudden gets really amplified when things are not going well. Okay. So I've had, in the last few days, a GM call, really annoyed about something, either about a player, or some other thing around the team. And it's like they want to call and blow off some steam.
Okay.
Bent
a little.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, you take the call and you hear, you listen, but also put into perspective what might else be going on.
Okay. And so, you know, I'm curious about, like, if a general manager's in that sort of a spot, they could be calling an event. They could be calling to talk, you know, potential trade and that sort of thing. And one of the things that I think you pointed out on our show in like season 2 is that in a lot of cases, agents are the facilitators. They're almost the sort of the grease that makes the whole NHL run, the motor run in terms of player movement and getting things done. Because not every GM calls every other GM. And you know, I'm curious about do your phone calls then have to pick up too? So if you got a GM and every year you're going to get it, GMs in a market not doing well, are they calling you to test you? Maybe not even on your own players, but like, hey, what have you heard? What's out there in the market? What are people saying? Do you get those kinds of questions?
Sure. And that's a typical conversation. But I would say some of the calls are much more focused.
Okay.
There could be an issue between a player and a coach. And that seems to be the issue du jour. Dealing with a couple of those situations right now where different players and coaches may not be on the same page and everybody's trying to work to bridge the divide, so to speak, and get everybody rowing in the same direction.
Right.
You've got some coaches who I think are on the hot seat, and some we can project, fans could project, are on the hot seat. I think there are some others that people would be surprised about that are on the hot seat. And I don't mean necessarily at risk of imminently being fired, but I think at risk of having a breakdown in faith between the GM and the coach, where the GM might be sitting back and saying, I don't know if we've got the right guy right now. Okay. Which is the beginnings of that train starting to leave the station on some guys that might ultimately lead to a coaching change, which may happen in season or may not happen till the end of the season.
Right.
But I could tell in talking to some GMs, you know, they're never going to say, I'm thinking about firing my coach. Oh, you'll never hear that. Although I heard that once or twice in 31 years. So that's how rare.
But rare, yeah.
Extremely rare. But you hear sometimes coaches say things which are somewhat critical of the way their coach is dealing with various issues, where you come away from the call and you say, whoa, you know, he's not very happy with his coach right now. And ultimately, you know, 3 months, 6 months or into the year, that person's no longer the coach.
Right. And I do you get any GMs calling you to gloat? Like, hey, I'm feeling really good right now, and I'm and I'm really enjoying life. Like, is there the other side of it?
Sure. I've had not this year, but in prior years, there were a couple of GMs who call and, you know, life is great. I'm going out and playing pickleball in the afternoons, and the team is humming along in first place. And, you know, my job here is to stay out of everybody's way and just not fuck it up.
Well, those are good calls to get. So yeah, no, I've it's always been interesting to me, this sort of benchmark. And obviously in Toronto, we're in a position where, you know, watching the Leafs, they've not had the best start, and there are major franchises sort of in that way. I wonder for you, you know, we're 4 weeks away from the roster freeze. And, you know, a lot of teams this early have fan bases, if they're underperforming, that go, why don't they just make a trade?
Right.
And there's just so few that happen. I think the major trades last year is, I think Chicago was able to completely change its goaltending over before Christmas last year, which was like an NHL record. It never happened.
Colorado.
Sorry, Colorado. Why did I say Chicago? Yeah. Colorado.
Both goalies. Unheard of.
Unheard of, never happens. Why is it? Like, why is it really that nothing really happens before December, before Christmas, really, in terms of major trades?
Well, I think previously with a flat cap and having so many teams capped out, and last year was still very much part of that, getting a major trade done, right, involves moving money in season, which is extremely hard to do. Extremely hard to do. I could say this. People would be shocked to actually know the number of conversations regarding trades that actually go on between GMs behind the scenes, and the names that are proposed back and forth. And 99% of those discussions never actually lead to a trade.
Okay.
All right. So they might get 50% down the road, 75% down the road, and, you know, something happens. A team starts playing better. Some of these discussions start in November, and the trade is being discussed on a regular basis, November, December, January, and gets done the day before the deadline.
Because what do you say about deadlines?
Deadlines clarify the mind.
Now, what's interesting about this year, Allan, is that the deadline, I almost look at this year as like it's a dual deadline, because when you look at the Olympic schedule, it's most of February. I know the Olympics are 2 weeks, but really, the NHL plays a couple of days in the beginning of February and a couple of days at the end. They come back from Milan, and it's basically a week and a half before the trade deadline happens.
And there's no games for 3 weeks.
Right. Well, exactly.
Yeah.
And so, and February is already a short month. So, you know, I was wondering, do you have a sense of, and I'm just spitballing here, do you have a sense of maybe there might be some general managers that want to get something done before the Olympic break and have some of their moves already ready to go? Could there be a somewhat softer double deadline happening this year?
It's entirely possible.
Okay.
The issue is, if you make a trade just before the Olympic break, a team is likely to be carrying extra money, extra cap space, without any games being played. Right. So I could see some deals being consummated before the deadline, but not actually announced and registered with the league and actually executed until just after the Olympic break.
Okay.
Okay.
So it could push some conversations up, I guess.
It could. Not now. You know, we're playing a little bit of voodoo here.
Yeah.
It's entirely possible we end up with enough activity before the Olympic break to actually have it resemble a double deadline. But what we've also seen in the last couple of years is the days leading up to the deadline have a lot of activity, and the actual deadline day,
quiet.
I mean, I you know, the guys on SportsCenter at TSN, I hope they're good with their juggling, because there's nothing else to really talk about.
Yeah.
You know, there might be, you know, 15, 20 trades, but they're more tweaks and minor league deals and fourth liners being moved, as opposed to any big names being moved. That usually happens now, you know, in deadline week, not necessarily deadline day.
Right. And I remember last year when we were at, last year, it was actually this calendar year, but last season when Jesse and you and myself were in London, we did the Agent Provocateur podcast at Western University, and that night Mikko Rantanen was traded.
That's right.
So, you know, that was unbelievable. And that was an early deal. right? That was well ahead of when anybody thought. And frankly, nobody thought Mikko Rantanen was getting traded at that point. So it was sort of a shock. And I guess, the trade deadline for me this year is really interesting because we're seeing so many players lock themselves into the teams that they already have. And obviously we've talked about why, this is the last time that you're going to be able to get 8 years on a contract. That's shrinking to 7 for your home team and obviously 6 in free agency. Teams have cap space where they wouldn't before. So even, our home team here in Toronto, which has been capped out for the better part of a decade, actually has cap space to move players up and down where, I remember when they tried to sign Matthew Nyes and they had to get an emergency backup in net because they couldn't afford to have a goaltender.
Right.
I'm curious about the GMs knowing that there isn't maybe the massive amount of talent sitting on the market for July 1st, 2026, the way they thought there might be. Connor McDavid's off the board, Kaprizov's off the board, Shesterkin would have been up, but he re-signed as well. Do you think that may push GMs to make more of those trades? Is that going to juice the market, or will that make people a little bit more conservative because they just, I think the default setting in the NHL seems to be anti-NBA. The NBA, they seem to be like, go for it. Throw 40 picks and swaps and everything at it and we'll see what happens. The NHL, it's like, well, let's not do that. Let's think this out. Let's form a committee and have a conversation about it. What are you seeing from the market on that side?
I think what's really interesting when you look at the league as a whole is in talking to GMs who are looking forward a year, 2 years down the road, there are players who are approaching unrestricted free agency who we know are going to be in huge demand if they ever hit the market.
Yeah.
Right. And it's sort of like talking to guys sometimes. I get off the phone and I'm like, thinking about these group of players, how many of them actually ever reach unrestricted free agency? They either get a deal done with their team or they get traded and in conjunction with the trade, get a deal done with their new team. But how many actually go to the market and July 1 are out there? I mean, there've been several high profile UFAs in the past, but looking at a huge pool of fantastic players available a year in advance, and then ticking each player off the list as they come off the board and either sign with their team or are moved and signed with another team. Any GM coming in looking to totally revamp their team using free agency, it's just not there.
It's not there. No,
it's not there. So really, as somebody who, a new GM comes in, you can't really look at free agency. Yes, there's some gems out there, right? And there's good signings and bad signings. But there's no ability to go in and completely retool your team in free agency. Right. So now you have to look at your drafting, your developing, your American League coaching staff, and how you're drafting your players and how you're developing them into future NHL players, and scouring the American League and Europe for hidden gems that might be out of favor in a particular organization due to the depth in a particular position, or just, not a good fit. And saying that's a guy that if we ever got this guy, he can come in with us and we see great things for him.
Right.
And there's a lot of that going on out there right now.
Well, and the guy I always think about when those conversations come up is, in the expansion draft for Vegas, and obviously we all know Marc-Andre Fleury was the face of that. William Karlsson was playing almost no minutes in Columbus. He was selected and then immediately scored 40 goals for them, and has been a Golden Knight ever since. Those players exist out there. As an agent, if you think you have one of those guys, what's your, and they're not getting the time that they perhaps need, what do you do to help that matter along?
I mean, that's the
whole gig.
That's what we do, right? Promote these guys, put their best foot forward, try to get them on other people's radar as best you can, talk them up a lot. In the course of a conversation, you might really focus on guys that you believe might need a change of scenery because the opportunity might not be there where they are currently, and see if there's a better opportunity somewhere else.
Well, and we saw an example of this in Toronto recently, and I'm not trying to make the whole thing about the Leafs, but they have been a bit of a story. David Kampf and the Toronto Maple Leafs terminated his contract mutually. Terminated is a very strong word, but it was a mutual termination. And, from what we had heard, obviously David Kampf being sent down was not something that he wanted. The Leafs were in a cap crunch situation where they couldn't afford the contract hit for what the value that they thought he brought to the team. And obviously ice time being diminished under Berube. Sometimes a coach changes. Players are not on the same page, as you mentioned at the beginning. And, in David Kampf's specific situation, he walked away from $3.3 million, right? He had a bonus next summer, significant amount of money. What are the things that you need to walk a player through when they come to you and they say, I can't do this anymore. I need a fresh start. I don't even care about the money. Just get me the heck out of here. And the team... And from what I've understood, the Leafs tried to trade him, tried to waive him. Nobody wanted the trade. Nobody wanted to take him on waivers. What do you as an agent advise? How do you handle that?
So first off, there is no such thing as mutual termination in the CBA.
Oh, okay. So that's something that they always say.
Well, it is. And I'll tell you the process.
Okay.
There is a verbal understanding between the player, the agent, and the club that we're going to go through the process of mutually terminating the contract, but both sides can't just say, we agree to mutually terminate and that's it. Here's the process. The agent will notify the club that the player is refusing to continue reporting with his, let's say, American League club. Okay. It could be with the NHL club, where you officially notify the team the player is no longer reporting, won't be there tomorrow, and then the team suspends the player.
Yes.
Okay. So a suspension letter then comes from the club saying the player is suspended. Now, once the player is suspended, one of the remedies that the club has under the CBA is to seek termination of the SPC, the standard player contract. And that begins with putting the player on unconditional waivers. So the player then goes on unconditional waivers.
And what is that? What's the difference between waivers and unconditional waivers, Allan?
Well, there's conditional and unconditional. Unconditional waivers is specifically for the purpose of contract termination. Okay. And there's a separate designation on the waiver wire that the waivers are unconditional. All right. And the claim on that is $125.
Oh, really?
Yeah. As opposed to the waiver wire fee. There's actually a fee. Anytime a player goes on waivers, there's actually a fee for how much the player will cost the club claiming him.
Really?
Yeah, a lot of people
didn't
don't know that. So let me.
Wow. There's no idea.
Yeah. So let me just quickly here in real time. Mason Geertsen was recently on waivers. The amount to claim him by any club he cleared was $3,375. And Alexander Texier was recently put on waivers by St. Louis. He cleared. The waiver fee was $15,000.
What determines that? Is it their contract value?
Years of service in the league.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And is that a penalty against the cap? Is that an admin fee? Like, what is that?
No, that's just a fee that the claiming club must remit to the club that loses the player.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So there's compensation.
There actually is a financial transaction taking place when you claim a player off waivers, as opposed to unconditional.
Right. And and just so I know, unconditional waivers, A team could put in a claim.
They could.
That is possible. Nobody ever does, but they could.
I don't believe it's ever happened.
Okay.
Yeah. And the standard fee on that is $125.
Man, that's wild.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you put the player on unconditional waivers and
assuming he clears.
And then
the next day, the next day after clearing, the club will send a termination notice on the contract to the agent and to NHL Central Registry, and then the contract is terminated, and the player immediately becomes an unrestricted free agent.
And before all that happens, though, there has to be a conversation, maybe late at night, where a player calls you and goes, "I can't do it. I can't do this. I don't want to be here."
That's the beginning of the process.
Yes.
That's the beginning of the process. So almost in every situation like this, I can't imagine it being any other way. The agent has permission to talk to other teams, right? The team has tried to trade the player, can't find a trade partner.
Mm-hmm.
The team has put the player on waivers. The player is cleared. If there are other teams that are interested in the player, the reason why he would clear is for sure because of the value of the contract.
Mm-hmm.
We really like this player at $800,000 or $1 million, but we don't like this player at $3.5 million or $4 million, right? No way. But if he were a $1 million player, we're in all day, right?
Right.
So that's the player will be informed by his agent. Here are the teams interested in you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. It would be $1 million, not $3.5 million. And do you want to continue on in the American League where you are basically buried? Or do you want a chance at reviving your NHL career somewhere else, but you're going to have to give up term and money, a lot of money. And that's a player, decision that the player is going to have to make.
Well, and that's the part for us normies who make normal money. The idea of walking away from $3.3 million in David Kampf's case, but in anybody's case, is such a staggering amount of money, right? It's so crazy. And obviously at the NHL, we know everybody earns it at a higher clip than the average person, but
careers are so much shorter.
They are, right? And they have to spread that money over so many years.
When I sit with people and I amortize out their NHL salaries over a normal civilian work life, from 20 years of age or 22, 23 years of age after, university, for example, to age 65 or 67,
mm-hmm.
Retirement age. You've got all these years of earnings where as you progress in your career, hopefully, and most people are making more money when they're 45 and they're 50 than when they were 25, right? But here you've got athletes with 4-year careers, which is the average,
mm-hmm.
right? Just a sliver under 4 years. And let's say, the better players in the league are playing 10 years plus,
mm-hmm.
right? You still have to amortize, which in many cases is an astronomical amount of money, still amortize it over the course of an entire work life.
Yes.
And it becomes a lot less.
Certainly. And let's say I'm your client and I'm slightly younger. I'm in my prime earning years, which would be 10 years ago for me. I'm 37. So I'm a 27-year-old. I'm not happy with the way things are going. I've been sent down to the AHL. What kinds of things are you going to tell me when I call you and say, I'm thinking about doing this and I'm going to walk away from multiple millions of dollars?
You can't do it unless there's another team out there that is going to sign you ASAP.
Right.
You're not going to terminate your contract, go home and wait, right? And hope for a call.
You need to know.
So anytime there is one of these, I call them staged terminations because they're staged.
Mm-hmm.
Both sides are in on it together. And it's weird that over the years, both sides have not written in to the CBA an ability for a mutual termination.
It is weird.
But it doesn't exist. And I guess there's some, what if a team is pressuring a player to terminate his contract? So let's leave it the way it is. So that it really has to be mutual,
mm-hmm.
right? As opposed to there being some way of a team pressuring a player to basically give up his deal,
Yeah.
right, walk away. But I would tell a player, like, you cannot even consider this unless there is, one or more offers on the table where literally the day you terminate your contract, you're signing a new one.
And how do you know as an agent that it isn't just a weak moment or an upset moment? Maybe a weak moment's the wrong way to categorize this, but a moment of, I'm really upset, I'm really angry, and but maybe I'll sleep on it and I'll be fine tomorrow. How do you know, okay, they're very serious about this and this is what they want?
Okay.
Okay.
You don't get a random call out of the blue with a player saying, hey, I woke up this morning and I want to terminate my contract. It's something that
the process.
Exactly. You've lived through a very difficult, 1, 2, 3 months, half a year, where you get to a point where the club, the player, and the agent have tried everything working together to move the players somewhere else. And there just is no place for that player on another team making that money.
Right. And it's interesting because, when we think about these types of things, the cap acceleration changes so much of the mathematics in a risk like that. I can never fault a player for betting on themselves. And you've said on this show many times, players will always bet on themselves.
Always.
Always, always, always. With the cap going up, if you walk away from some money, there's a pretty good chance you can recoup that in a way that maybe you couldn't 3 or 4 years ago, right?
Well, if you're looking at a situation where you might be buried in the American League and you're making a lot more money than any other American League player, you're making $2.5 million, $3 million, $3.5 million. I mean, there aren't any other players in the American League making that kind of money, right? Because remember, you're still sitting on the team's cap over and above the 1.1 million. So you might be, if you stay there the end of the year or another year after, because you're buried, no future teams interested in you. Your window might close. Your opportunity window might close.
Right.
So a player in this situation is making the decision. I'm going to go out there I'm going to give up a lot of money, but I'm going to go to another team that has legitimate interest in me. There's a need, there's a role, there's a hole that I'm going to go in and fill and hopefully revive my career and get another contract, right? So you might look at it as, I might be giving up $2.5, $3 million, but if I can grab this opportunity on this other team, I might get another contract out of this and I might come out ahead.
Yeah, exactly. Another 2 or 3 year deal after a 1 year contract.
And that's happened.
Oh, plenty of times it's happened. I wonder, do you think it might happen more? Now that there is, we're talking about almost 10% year over year. This cap is expected. Well, it's guaranteed to go up.
Right.
The amount of money for a centerman that is a third or a fourth liner, or a winger that's a third or a fourth liner, or a 5 or 6 or a 7th defenseman is going to go up with it. Just because, when you guys negotiate, it's percentage of cap, not necessarily actual dollars, right? We're talking in a lot of those cases. I'm curious if you think that might be the case, or if these are just special circumstances. It just doesn't happen much.
I think it's still kind of rare, and I don't think we're going to see a proliferation of staged terminations in season. I think there'll be, every once in a while, a single issue that has been dragging out for a number of months, and that's the result. But I don't think we're going to see more of them than we've seen in the past. There's no real reason for that.
Right.
But one thing about the cap, and I've brought this up before, I've been saying for a while now, and I've said it to you here on the show, that the cap in 2 years will be over 120 million. All right. So the official number released by the PA and the league together is 113.5 million in 2 years. That number is actually going to be over 120. And I've said that to some GMs who are like, come on, no way. And now those GMs are saying to me, it might even be a little bit more than 120.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, right now there's no escrow.
No.
Players are not paying any escrow, and teams will have to pay a significant percentage over and above to top up to players to get to the 50-50. So ultimately, when HRR is reconciled for this season, the players will be making significantly less than 50%.
Yeah. And so they're going to have to be topped up.
Get them back up to 50%. Teams are going to have to cut checks over and above what they're paying players right now to get them to 50%. It might end up being 105 or 106% of the face value of contracts for this year.
Wow. And it's been the players paying into that escrow for so long. This is the first time really that this has happened, right?
This is I do not recall since 2005 and the beginning of the salary cap system in the NHL, there ever being a season that started without escrow.
Wow.
I mean,
wow.
we've had escrow at different times from 2005 over 20%.
It's unbelievable. It's crazy to think. And just a few years ago when they renegotiated during COVID, how much money was going into escrow versus now, and all that money's now being paid back.
Has been paid back. About $1.1 billion.
Wow.
Which was the escrow debt coming out of the pandemic.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
It was a quick turnaround. Now I want to talk about, there's a couple major tournaments coming up. We've got the World Juniors, which are always a big deal, and I know you're always at those. And then this year, very special, or this coming calendar year, but this season, the Olympics. And, you know, you have players involved in both, or who could potentially be involved in both. Are they thinking much about it at this time of the year? Is it on their mind? I mean, we're 5 weeks away from all of these teams having to submit their final list December 31st, 2025 for the Olympics. And obviously the World Juniors teams are already coming together right now. How has that been going?
Well, for World Juniors, the different federations, the Czech Federation, Sweden Federation, Swiss Federation, have already sent invitation letters to the respective junior or NHL clubs about particular players. So those players already know that they've been nominated to the World Junior Training Camp for their respective country. And it is definitely, I mean, we're right at, nearing Thanksgiving weekend in the United States. Mm-hmm. And I think some of the World Junior camps are opening around December 11th, December 12th. So it's coming up quick. Players are getting excited. It certainly picked up in conversations with different players here and there. With the Olympics, mm-hmm. Same thing. I mean, there are a lot of players really excited to be part of this. It's been a long time since players have gone to the Olympics. We've talked about it at length.
Yes,
it's
ridiculous.
It really is. It really is. And to have players, NHL players on the world stage at a critical moment when all eyes are on the Olympics is a great way to grow the game mm-hmm. In many different ways. And, just look at Sweden and the games that just happened in Sweden. I can't believe how many people reached out to me saying, NHL teams are playing games in Sweden?
Yeah, they didn't market it.
It wasn't marketed.
Not at all.
No. Now, in fairness, because we always want to be fair to the league.
They're always fair.
It was marketed heavily in Sweden.
Right.
And other parts of Europe. But to me, part of it all is generating the interest amongst the fans in North America.
Certainly.
About the teams going over there to play.
I mean, they do it in the NFL. You see it all the time.
No one knew. I mean, I knew, you knew, but yep. There were so many people who are like, wait. They're in the game's at 11 a.m. They're in, where are they? Mm-hmm. I mean, what are the NHL people doing?
It's a missed opportunity. It is. And like I said, like the London games, whenever the NFL goes over, they make a big deal of it. They make it a big deal. That's, this is a huge thing. And we're going to talk about it. And I am curious why the NHL sees things that way. They're always a success too. Like Steve went over when the Leafs went, Steve Dangle, that is, and he said it was unbelievable. He said it was an incredible experience. I think it was Ottawa, Detroit, Toronto that were there that year. Yeah. And he said it was just an unbelievable set of games.
And I was just talking to somebody today who went over, and there was a huge ceremony for Matt Sundin over there. Mm-hmm. The NHLPA hosted a huge dinner. I think there were over 400 or 500 people there.
Wow.
I mean, there was a lot of activity going on over there. None of it was promoted over here.
No, straight over our heads.
And I don't know why.
Now, the Olympics, I guess, don't need the same promotion, but I haven't seen a ton of promotion for hockey at the Olympics. The NHL doesn't seem to be talking about it too much. Are the players?
Every day.
Every day.
Every
okay.
day. And I think that when we get into the second week of January and we get to the footsteps of the beginning of the Olympics, mm-hmm. it's going to be everywhere.
And are you going to be there?
Oh yeah, I'm going.
Yeah. Now there is some word about the arena in Milan, and
it's more than some word.
Some word. It's been it's been a conversation. Even the NHL brought it up like a year ago.
Yeah.
Jesse, who is producing this show right now, always maintains, he's like, listen, it's the Olympics. They do this every time. The construction's always late, and they always finish right before. Like sometimes the concrete isn't even dry yet, right?
And that's why we all love Jesse.
He's so calm and patient. Do you think that, I know one of the things NHL head office hates is uncertainty, except for when it comes to franchises in Arizona. But beyond that, this is part of what they didn't like about international play is their lack of control over it, because Gary doesn't control the Olympics.
Right.
He's, his organization is a participant in it, but it's not up to him.
With Gary, it has to be something that he completely controls and that it was his idea.
Yes.
Right? As if it's his idea, if he can claim credit for it, he loves it. If it's somebody else's idea and he's being asked to partner mm-hmm. in the situation and he can't say that I came up with this, he has no interest.
So what do you know about where the arena is, or the Olympic arena stands from the player, the NHLPA perspective? Are there any really valid concerns, or is this sort of a story that'll go away?
I think there are real concerns, enough to where a joint delegation of NHL, NHLPA people are going over to Milan in December to get an on-site facilities tour and check out the ice.
Wow.
Yeah, because there is there was some discussion about a plan B, and that is actually moving the entire tournament to Switzerland. And from what I've heard lately, that's off the table.
Okay.
Not so much because they're confident the arena in Milan will be ready, just that it's not feasible to move it all to Switzerland.
Right. It would have been in Davos where they do the Spangler.
Right.
Okay.
So, I do believe, like Jesse, that everything is going to come in just under the gun. But there's going to be a lot of fingernail biting until that happens.
Are you? You always tell us that you cheer for players, your players specifically, as you should.
Yep.
And not teams. When it comes to the Olympics, do you become a little nationalistic, a little prideful in your home country? Do you cheer for Team Canada, or is it still one of those things where it's like, nope, I cheer for the players that are in the thing, and that is as far as I will go?
Yeah, I'm not cheering for any country, or there's none of that.
See, that would be really hard for me. I don't know how you do that.
I just want players to do well, and I cheer for players. And if a player is on Canada, I want him to do well, and I see him win, and that's a wonderful thing to see.
Yeah.
I'm happy for him. I'm happy for his family. I'm happy for his parents. I'm happy for the memory of going through all of that and coming out on the other side with a medal. That's wonderful for me, very gratifying for me. And to be part of the team, the players' team, individual personal team, to go that far is amazing. And whether the player is playing for Canada or Czech Republic or Germany mm-hmm. Or USA, I'm cheering for players.
I'm curious because obviously the World Championships a couple of seasons ago, the Czech Republic, which you're Czech, I guess, you're very hooked into. Czechia.
Officially
Czechia. They won. And it was a national event. And I remember, they had Radko Gudas, who was the captain, in front of, there's that picture of him in front of that huge crowd in Prague, all out celebrating. When you go to Czechia, do they talk about 1998 much? And do they talk about the effect, obviously running through Canada, Dominik Hasek being as dominant as he was? I know that was early on in your agent career, but is that something like these tournaments really do matter to these countries beyond just North Americans?
In 1998, I was in Starometsky na Mesti, which is Old Town Square in Prague, when the Czech team returned from Nagano with the gold medal. And they went from the airport in a bus directly to Old Town Square for the celebration. And there were hundreds, I think the final estimate was over 500,000 people.
Wow.
Squeezed into the square, and there was laughing, there was singing, there was flag waving, there was crying,
beer drinking,
and there are a lot of that. and when the players came off the bus, they had a podium built with long desk microphones, and it was sort of like a media event. What I remember about it was, first of all, Ivan Holinka, the former player and coach, who was the head coach of the team,
of which the tournament is named after.
The Holinka, the under 18, is partially him and Gretzky. But Ivan Holinka was so drunk coming out of the bus that he passed out on the podium. He had alcohol poisoning.
Oh no!
And they had to put him in an ambulance and take him to the hospital.
Oh no!
Yeah, the guys had been drinking from the time they won. Not to that extent. I would say every player was drunk. But that was was over the top. But when they came off the bus, guys needed help. Some of them getting up to the podium, and it was crazy. It was in that square is one of the all-time hockey memories that I have my entire life. I have never seen that kind of, and been in the middle of that kind of crazy, emotional, prolonged outburst that existed when the bus pulled up until they ultimately left. And all through literally the next week, there was dancing and partying in the streets of Prague.
Wow. Did you have any clients on that team?
I didn't represent anybody on the team, but I knew a lot of the guys on the team.
You did.
And many of them became good friends later in life and are friends today. And some of the players on that team, I represent their sons.
That's cool. Yeah. That's very, very cool. Okay. And the last thing I want to talk to you about, because, we always, whenever I was at a Movember event yesterday, and somebody came up to me and they said, I just love Agent Provocateur. I love it because I love the business side of it. And, one of the things that I think we get really great insights on here where you don't get it anywhere else is the business side. Dallas Stars and Dallas Mavericks are locked in a legal battle right now.
Yep.
And we won't get into too many of the details, but, ever since Mark Cuban sold the Dallas Mavericks to a casino magnate family based out of Las Vegas, there's been some interesting things that have happened, like star players being traded to Los Angeles and nobody understanding why.
Right.
And it's come out today that the Dallas Stars are accusing the Dallas Mavericks of having their head office based in Vegas, which violates an agreement between the two franchises and the arena that they share.
Right.
And that arena is leased from the city. And there are, weirdly enough, NHL cap implications as a part of this.
Yeah, potentially.
So why should people watch this story?
So the Mavericks, under the terms of the agreement, have been collecting revenue on the building that is earmarked for the Dallas Stars. And the Mavericks have put that money into an escrow account, but they have refused to transfer that money over to the Stars. And what I heard is that there are tens of millions of dollars sitting in this escrow account that the Stars have not yet received for prior seasons and this year. And the money just keeps getting more and more and bigger and bigger.
Just sitting.
And this revenue is ultimately HRR.
Wow.
it's hockey related revenue.
Right.
Right. So there is an implication if this money somehow never makes its way to the Dallas Stars.
Holy smokes. Unbelievable. So that, I guess if that money is released, then do they track it per season and go back and readjust? Or do they just say they count it as it came into the Dallas Stars this year, so it counts against HR for this year and we move forward?
I don't know the answer specifically.
Yep.
That's above my pay grade.
Okay.
But I would say that if the books are not closed on a prior season, they would have the ability to add that revenue to that season if both sides agreed to it, the NHL and the PA. If not, then it would probably all be allocated to the current season.
And might make the cap go up that much more.
Tens of millions of dollars of additional revenue.
No kidding. Allan Walsh, that's pretty wild. So last question, Allan. You rolled through Toronto. Where are you going to next? What's next for you?
I'm going to Brantford tonight to an OHL game. Then I'm heading back to LA, and I'm going to be Sunday night having dinner with a client on the Ottawa Senators named David Perron.
We've heard of him.
And Monday is Ottawa against the LA Kings in LA. I'll be at that game.
Okay.
And then I'll be at a couple of games in Anaheim and possibly a game in Utah.
Awesome. Well, listen, if for anybody at those arenas, if you do see Allan, come up and say hi, right?
And it happens.
It does? Do you get AP fans?
I was in Dallas and sitting in between the first and second period, and a guy wearing a Leafs jersey at a Dallas Stars game, and the Leafs weren't playing.
Difficult.
Yeah. Came up to me and started, hey, I watch Agent Provocateur. You guys are great. And we had a nice conversation.
That's awesome.
Come up to me anytime, anywhere, in any arena. I'd love to talk to fans.
Well, it's great to see you in person. Thanks so much for coming in.
It's great to be here.
This has been Agent Provocateur with Allan Walsh and Adam Wylde. Follow Allan Walsh on Twitter @WalshA. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts by searching Agent Provocateur and hitting the subscribe button. YouTube.com/SDPN.